Hey guys, what's up? Thanks again for tuning in for another exciting episode of Five Methods to Be a Better SCA Fighter. Tonight we have Duke Tomuki, and it was a pretty cool video because he went into the mental aspects of fighting versus and the mental disciplines that you have to require to be a good fighter. And when he first started fighting, he was telling us that he fought here. He followed in the footsteps of Musashi, which was a very famous samurai. He actually got to the point that he started fighting people with a wooden oar that you'd use for a boat and beating them um, in duels and such like that. So, and he also he literally did 1,000 strikes a day at the pell. Tamuki did, and so it's pretty cool to listen to what he had to say and the fundamentals that he developed over the course of his SCA career. So, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to him and enjoy tonight's episode, guys. Chit chat at us. Um,
Okay.
so, we're going to go ahead and get started. Tonight's episode is Duke Tomuki. Is that how you pronounce that?
Yeah, close
Close enough.
enough.
Close enough. Um, and he's going to be going over his 5 methods on being a better fighter. So I'm just going to turn it right over to you, and feel free to get started however you want. Give us a little bit about you. I know you
Okay.
did that before, but for the YouTube channel. So
Okay. My name is Duke Tomuki. I originally started in Palantir,
mhm.
and I've been playing this game for about 34 to 36 years. Um, I guess a little background. I had been fighting for about 16 months when I stupidly had won crown. So I didn't plan on winning crown. I was just trying. I was very ambitious, and I was just trying to prove to people that I had that I was a good fighter, not that I went set out to win crown, and it just so happened to come out that I was in the finals with Duke Valens and prevailed over that. I When I first started, I would follow. I was learning the method of fighting from a certain Duke who would tell me to feel that energy in the ground and then draw it up through your body and then strike your opponent. Well, the problem with that with me was, and this was probably 1987, the problem with that was that I am a big guy at 6'4", and at the time I was still playing football, so I'm about the same weight. I was about 325. Uh, I was bending and breaking shields.
Oh wow.
So literally after I'd been fighting for 3 months, I had a court of chivalry called on me for bending Sir Hiram's shield, who he just had bought it that day and strapped it up. And I kept throwing shots and I kept going, wow, I can see more of his head. I just thought to go faster and stronger. But what I was doing was bending his shield in the process of that. And so the one thing from that
Mhm.
was that I did not want to injure or hurt anybody. So then that's was my foray into doing pell work. And back in the day, everybody fought from off the shoulder, and no one fought high guard. And I started practicing high guard because one, I could still get the power, but it wasn't as powerful from throwing off the shoulder.
Hmm.
And that was in kind of in Palantir, I'm going to say, because it was very regionally oriented. No one was fighting from high guard. And then people say, "Oh, you can't hit me hard enough." And then I'd hit them and they'd go, "Wow, I guess you can." And I said, "Well, the difference of that is that I would do at least an hour and a half to 2 hours of pell work every day.
Hmm.
I'd go to the gym for an hour and a half. Then I'd immediately go to do pell work for an hour and a half because my whole goal was to throw 1,000 blows a day, like I was talking about earlier. Uh, and I was following the dictates of Musashi. And I thought, hey, if I want to be as good as Musashi, I should follow his practices. And that was more in tune to what I understood about SCA. I never really read, you know, knights in shining armor or anything like that. It was mainly Greek mythology what I read, which was either your kings or your heroes. You know, they had nothing to do with chivalry or anything like that. So that wasn't in my mindset when I joined the SCA. I just wanted, you know, not to be a king, but I wanted to quote unquote be a hero.
Okay.
And a hero is someone that, you know, fights well. And, you know, to be a hero, you have to kill quite a few people. So that was the thing that was the most interesting to me. And from there, I guess I could go right into the things. But I want to preface this by saying um, this is going to be a talk about SCA fighting from an intelligence and an intellect point of view. And I just want you to know this has nothing to do with how smart you are or anything. Uh, Intellect is the faculty of reasoning and objective understanding,
Hmm.
and intelligence is the ability to acquire knowledge and skills. So you have to work your intelligence to get the skill, but your intellect to be able to apply it to the situation that you're in. So I just wanted to start off by saying that, um, and then go right into what I consider uh, one of the basic 5 things that after all of this time I could distill from what I had when I first started and when I was 17 years old going out there to fight.
Hmm.
Commitment is one of the things that I think you need to foster in your SCA fighting. And what I mean by commitment is be committed in Pell work. And what I mean by being committed in the Pell work is that you will find methods and understanding of being able to tolerate doing Pell work, because a lot of people go out and throw 100 blows and they're through.
Hmm.
And it's like, oh, that's boring to me. But if you use your visualization, uh, uh, cause and effect, and things like that, then you can find yourself, you know, into a Pell work practice 45 minutes to an hour before you can get exhausted from that Pell work. The other thing is be committed in fighting journals. And I know a lot of people talk about this, but that was very instrumental in my starting of the SCA, because I was so ambitious and so committed. Every time I fought somebody, I wrote down exactly what the fight was and how they killed me, and if I were lucky enough to get a stick on them, what I did to get a stick on them. And after 5 years of doing that, I then went back over my journals and I distilled down the things that I considered work for me. And I tried to fill the gaps of the areas of things that didn't work for me. Um, the other thing is in commitment is be committed into learning and studying different forms. This may be foreign to a lot of people, but once again, I started in a kingdom where forms were kind of required to become what they called a huskarl. You had to be authorized in every weapon form. And they were broken down into categories. I mean, every category: axe and shield, mace and shield, uh, spear, 6-foot spear, pole arm, bastard sword, great sword. You had to get authorized in every one of those. And so I would say, okay, for this 3 months, I'm going to fight in this weapon style, axe and shields per se. And for me to understand exactly how that worked, I had to be committed to win or loss. I had to be committed just to stick with that form.
Hmm.
And once you learn all the avenues of all the different forms, then when you meet those individuals, whether you're fighting with the bastard sword or a weapon and shield, you actually know just about, not everything, but just about how that weapon moves. So it helps you be able to fight it. And it was very important to me at that time because my first two crown wins were with a bastard sword. So I fought nothing but bastard sword. So I would be open and only had this 2-inch wide stick to protect myself. So I had to really understand cause and effect so that I could help my offense and defense a little bit better. And plus, my athleticism, it was a part of that, of course. So it was very important that I knew how each weapon style moved so that I could never be caught off guard. Um, the other part of being committed uh, goes to not only fighting, but understanding and enhancing the SCA. Um, by understanding your fighting and then you're teaching that to someone else, it is enhancing how this has turned, you know, from how we fought in the 80s to how we're fighting now is drastically improved. So you have to add your knowledge to the pool of knowledge that is known as SCA to enhance the SCA and make it better and give you something different to learn. Because when I'm an actor by trade, and when I had to go to New York to do Shakespeare in the Park, I kind of couldn't fight at all for about 4 years. Well, in that 4 year time, fighting had changed drastically because how I learned fighting before was old school style. And it was get on your armor and let me come out here and kick your butt. And you know, if I learned, then I persevered in the SCA and stayed in it. Uh, if I if I got frustrated and got tired of getting beat and then didn't fight, you didn't persevere because there was really no classical way of training from an intellectual point of view. It was just, let me come out here and lay stick all over you. And I just got tired of getting bruised.
Hmm.
And so therefore I persevered. But now people have learned how to intellectualize our game a little bit more. And so when they are out teaching a new fighter, you have basic shots. You just don't go out and go, you do this, you know,
Yeah.
you set up basic shots to get them to understand the philosophy of fighting. And then they can progress from there, adding things that work for them and don't. Uh, and the second thing that I think can improve your SCA fighting is knowledge and understanding. And what I mean by that is knowledge and understanding. And if I throw a specific shot on someone, 9 times out of 10, the only way they can block it are with their stick or by raising their shield. And when they raise their shield, that means there's an opening for the leg or offside body or something. So you have to understand cause and effect when you're fighting, so that helps you strategize your fight just a little bit more. Um, and this goes once just kind of what I just talked about. I'm going to dovetail that by saying also the cause and effect. Um, there are certain people that can throw, you know, 3 and 4 blow combinations faster than most people can throw one shot. So you have to understand that they you still may die, but your winning criteria is a little bit narrower if you are patient enough to understand, okay, this guy's going to throw 3 or 4 blows and going to probably hit me with, you know, 3 of them. But if I can lay stick on him one time, that's good. And then probably try to learn how to block 2 of those blows and get some stick on him as he's getting stick on you. And then work from that point of view that you can where you're able to know, oh, he's going to throw these 3 blows, and as long as I can block those, then I can probably get some stick on him. Have knowledge and understanding of what your opponent is going to do to throw, i.e., once again, knowing how he retaliates to your blow throwing, and know uh, when people fight, and when you fight, not when pickups, but if you're in a tournament, you have to understand that people only throw shots that they have been successful with before. They don't try to invent some new shot right on the spot to try to hit you with. It has a success rate that they're only going to throw that shot that has been successful in the past. So that's, you can come across people that only like to throw flat snaps because that has been the shot that they have won with a high percentage of the time. And if you can have that shot blocked, then you basically demoralize your opponent because now you have totally blocked the shot that is their favorite shot. And you can notice that through videotape watching, and when I watch video, um, I will watch it one time through, just not for entertainment, just to see the flow of the fight, and then I start breaking it down to where I go, oh, that guy likes to throw that shot 65% of the time. So if I can keep that shot blocked, then I've taken away 65% of his offensive capability. And from here on, he's going to have to start intellectualizing every shot he throws, which actually will slow the opponent down by a second, or well, probably a half a second actually. Uh, and once you can slow that opponent down, then you are now fighting on your terms instead of his terms, and you can have a way of understanding the fight that is happening in front of you instead of just being a participant in this live pell work for whoever you are fighting. Um, so that knowledge and understanding is the second. Um, the third thing is ambition. And what I mean by ambition is not to be ambitious to try to become a knight, not to be ambitious to be king or to be a duke or anything like that. Um, I I break it down into when I would do pell work, I had ambition and drive to go and do this pell work because that was going to be methods that I could break down and keep throwing the same shot and understand how my body was throwing the shot. And in my visualization of the people that I was quote unquote fighting on the Pell,
Mhm.
I could break down what they were going to do or start working on my triggers, as I think Duke Sean uses the term triggers. When someone does something, it automatically triggers a response. And so I could visualize that and slow it down a little bit and
Mhm.
understand what I was working on. The other part of the ambition is I was ambitious to write in my journal because I could really break down all of the fighting even slower and in terms of mechanics and stuff, because then I would know exactly what someone was going to do and then be prepared for it. I was also ambitious to uh, after I had worked out a few things, I was ambitious to go to fighter practice, not to kill someone, but to work on specific shots to make sure that I had the right flow on it. Because when I threw it, um, my objective was to throw without any tells. Um, what we do when we fight is if you don't have, and I was fortunate enough to be big,
Mhm.
but when you are, you know, a little bit smaller, you have to wind up to throw a shot sometimes to get enough power on it for the person to take it. And in that wind up, you're giving that person time to recognize exactly what you're throwing.
Mhm.
And what my objective was to be able to throw shots without any tells so that it makes it seem faster than what you are when you can just throw that off body from the high guard thing without winding up for it, because it cuts down on the reactionary time. And so that was be a lot of the reason why I would love Pell work, is because I would sit and throw a shot over and over and over and over, probably 100 times, try to cut down on my tell. Um, and the way I thought of that was, like when you play poker, people watch their tells, and they're, if you can get everybody's tell down, you have a better chance of bluffing. You have a better chance of winning because you know when they're being truthful and when they're not being truthful. And that also helped me um, in my fighting, because a lot of times people will bluff like, oh, I'm going to throw this shot. But for some reason, after working so long, I'm able to tell when someone's actually going to throw a blow, or when they're just hunching their shoulders to get a reaction out of you. And
Hmm.
so that cut down on my bluff ability, because I started really paying attention to what the body has to do to actually do a shot, and you can see that coming. Um, I was also ambitious to learn, because uh, I think Duke Sean has mentioned this on several occasions. I never had preconceived notions. I would always empty my cup. If I walked up to Count so and so, or Sir so and so, or Duke so and he showed me a shot, I actually paid attention to the shot instead of trying to have some response back to him before he finished the whole process. So I would literally get out my journal, and I would, stand there with bated breath as he said, I do this, this. And even if I didn't think my body could do it, I'd still write it down exactly the way he said he did it. And then I'd ask the question of, why do you throw this shot? When do you throw this shot? Um, what After throwing a shot, do you throw this shot to get them offline, or what are you doing to actually make this shot effective? And I would ask those questions a lot, and people would look at me with furrowed brow, and I was like, "You don't understand. I'm not Duke so and so. I just can't come out here and throw this shot and hope to get you to take it, because I have to move this stick about 2 feet or 3 feet, and you only have to move your shield about an inch or two to block that. So why is this working,
Yeah.
for you?" And what I soon learned from that is, the more clubs you have in your bag, and the more shots you can throw, the more things will start working for you,
Hmm.
because your opponents can only catalog so many shots,
Hmm.
and they can't look for everything. And so if you have quite a few different varying shots in your bag, uh, they are going to only remember uh, probably a third of them, and
Hmm.
then from there you can surprise them with a new shot for from outside of the catalog that they have. The other thing is, I was ambitious to watch a lot of fighting. And when I first started, there wasn't YouTube. So I couldn't sit and watch that and catalog someone's shots from watching a lot of YouTube. I had to literally learn how to watch a fight so that I could literally see and understand what was going on. And when I say that, everybody goes, "Oh, I watch fighting every event." Well, technically, you're not watching it. You might be looking at it, but
Yeah.
you're not sitting there analyzing and understanding, oh, he did that leg twitch to get this to happen, to throw this blow or this blow. And so I learned from an early age, uh, probably not to catalog everything everybody could do, but to catalog their most popular shots, so that when I stood in front of them, I would be looking for those shots, or automatically block 2 or 3 of those shots so that I know that he couldn't throw them, and then I could work on something else. But now that YouTube has hit the scene, like I told you earlier, I watch videotapes of fighting daily. Probably, not a lot at one time. I may spend, 15, 20 minutes and watch a fight. Um, and that's what literally 20 minutes to watch a fight, because I rewind and play it and rewind it and play it again and try to understand exactly what they're going for. But I do that 2 or 3 times a day. So technically I'm probably watching about an hour's worth of fighting every day. Um, I I told you I had Adult Swim up, literally queued up right now, but a lot of times I am watching a lot of the fighter practices people put out there. His Majesty Timothy of Houghton
Hmm.
and Dietrich, and those are the only 2 people that I know, but I watch their uh, fighter practices a lot. I try to adopt or always try to go to different styles
Hmm.
so I can understand why someone who fights that style fights the way they do, uh,
Sure.
just in case I'm ever standing in front of it. Um, that I could switch to a different fighting stance. Um, when I was fighting regularly, Duke Alexander, well, His Majesty Alexander now,
Hmm.
would always go, "It's hard fighting you. You change styles and defensive stances so much. I never know what you're going to do." And I said, "That is what my goal is, so that you can't catalog me. I always go to a different stance because I can generate different shots from those stances and keep you thinking. And as long as you can keep your opponent thinking, you have a better chance of winning due to them having to analyze and strategize on the fight on the fly and not fall back into their normal winning patterns. And that is why certain people have a affinity for being known as Uber Dukes or whatever, is because everybody gets out there and allows them to fall into their winning pattern
Hmm.
instead of falling out there and making them think. Not saying you're going to win, but if you can make, someone like Duke Uther think, then every shot is going to be a half second slower as it's coming in on you, and you might be able to see it. It's kind of hard to see his shots, but he's not. I think 9 times on the throne for nothing.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but it happened so quickly that people go, "Oh man, I didn't even know he'd kill me," and I was like, "Seriously? You guys are gonna get out here and let him throw his ABC shots just for for free?" Instead of trying to block them, or not block them as in the shots coming in, but block them before he's able to throw those shots. Whatever his favorite shot is, you should block that,
Mhm.
so that he would have to think and analyze and strategize on the fly. The reason why some fighters, such as Uther and Sean and Timothy, His Majesty Timothy, do so well is because of well, I didn't hit patience, but I'll go back to that. Consistency. Um, their consistency is so high because they've already rattled their opponent before they walk out there.
Mhm.
Because as you just stand there and you say, "Sir, so and so fights Duke Sean," everybody goes, "Ooh," and he's already lost. He hasn't thought about what he's going to do when he walks out there to Duke Sean, and understand that, hey, if I can just block that headshot, then he will have to think about a different way, which will slow it down and be more defensive rather than reactive.
Mm,
And that's what I wanted to hit on patience. Let me kind of go back a little bit. Patience is the other thing. And when I say patience, every fighter will get out there and why are you throwing that shot? Oh, because he's throwing shots at me. And I've said, so you're just throwing shots just to throw shots? So you're going to tire yourself out knowing that they're not going to be effective, but just to throw? I said, that's not the way you should approach a fight. You should only throw shots that you think are going to be effective, or you throw a shot to get a cause so that you can throw to a different angle. If I want to, for instance, try to take someone's leg, I'm going to throw an offside head knowing that they're going to block that. And then my reaction from that is to come down and try to take that offside leg
yep.
because I know it's open. So making openings is part of the thing that you should be understanding and having the patience to do. I'm more of a defensive fighter. Duke guy of Castle Kirk would say to me, he goes, "Why are you so patient? You will sit out there and let that guy throw about 8 or 9 shots before you even throw one." And I said, well, one, I'm trying to pattern him and make sure that I understand what's going on and wait for him to make a mistake. you know, I'm not trying to go out there and race him to the finish line. I'm the turtle, and I'll just plod along slow until I can get exactly what I'm looking for. And the other thing with patience is a lot of people get into this game and they're not patient to advance in the SCA. They are rushing to try to become a knight or a duke or whatever. And then if they're able to achieve it, they then don't have the understanding of what it means to actually be a peer or a duke. Um, I was training a guy who said, and he would say this almost daily. Oh man, I can't wait to be a Duke. I can't wait to be a Duke. And I had to stop and go, okay, not one time have you ever said you wanted to be a good king. And I said, to be a good Duke, you have to be a good king. And I stopped training him because he just had ducal fever. And I was like, that's not the thing you should be
Wow.
chasing. You should be chasing wanting to be that good king. And a good king is, I'm king and I get a lot of stuff. That's what a lot of people get into that for. But as being king, it's about giving back to the community, giving back to people, being present and willing to talk to new people who only been there a day or two, to let them and invite them with open arms into the SCA. It's not about what I can get. And
Mm,
that is what a lot of people forget about being a good king, because if you work on being the good king, then those are the same traits you're going to have as being a good duke.
right.
And being willing to teach that new fighter or make that new fighter a tunic when they, one, can't afford it, or two, may not understand, uh, what it is to just have a good tunic. Please stop wearing that polyester and come over here and take this linen tunic. I was a broke college student, and I would be walking along, minding my own business, whistling after fighting, because I was always happy to be out there hitting people with sticks. And then some countess would walk up and go, "Here you go." And I'd go, "What is this?" And they'd go, "This is a tunic." And I said, "I don't have any money to pay you for a tunic." And they go, "Nope, I'm just giving it to you because I'm tired of watching you wear that polyester, whatever, 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 whatever. And by the way, throw that in the trash and wear this. And so I would go, okay. And so that was a thing to help me pay it forward. I do the same thing. If someone has been at an event for at least 2 or 3 times,
Mhm.
and I see they're not getting themselves together, instead of going over there and pointing fingers and um, uh, playing the blame game, I figure being a good peer is to walk over with a tunic that you made and just go, hey, here you go. And they
Absolutely.
go, oh, I can't give you any money for that. And you go, well, I'm not expecting any money for it. I just thought I'd help you out and get you to understand a little bit more about the SCA and to know what kind of fabrics to look for, and hopefully this will help you out. Just pay it forward when you've been in the SCA for 10 years, and do the same thing for another new person.
Do you
Um,
Let me interject. Do you think that's how Sean got his first pair of boots?
uh, Probably. But Sean had a leg up on us. He was already with a quote unquote rock star in the SCA by being squired to Brian Tarragon.
Yeah.
So he hit the cast offs from Brian Tarragon that he got were always better than the cast offs most people
Right.
get.
Right.
I'm just gonna say it. He may disagree with me, but I would have loved to have come in to be with a rock star king, knight slash king and get some of the
Hey, Tamiki, I'm going to go ahead and jump in here and say that I have definitely been the beneficiary of the generosity of others for a long, long time, and it is humbling to me that, as you stated, that I am now in a position where I can give back to others. I can give so
yeah.
much more to the
Hmm.
society that is quite frankly given me everything. So yes,
Absolutely.
I am definitely a beneficiary of it, and I'm trying to give back where I can. And yeah, being in riding Brian's coattails for the first 3 years of my fighting time definitely helped.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, that's the position that I'm in right now, just being on the board. It's not something I was striving towards, but when I was in the situation of not being able to fight for 5 years, I said how I didn't want to be that person that if I couldn't fight, that I would just drop out of the SCA,
Hmm.
because it has quote unquote given me so much. And when I say so much, I should probably qualify that. I was a young rapscallion. I used to fight almost every day because of where I went to school. I was like one of three Black people. So therefore, the tension was high, and I was in the deep South. And so I would end up fighting every day. And it took Master Craig Dugan noticing that in me and bringing me to the SCA. And once I started trying to live to the integrity, valor, and chivalry of the SCA, I started using that in my everyday life, which caused me not to want to fight on a hair trigger every time someone said or did something. So it taught me patience, it taught me some civility of some sort, and basically probably saved me from going to jail for hitting somebody with something that I shouldn't have, because I would do that on a regular basis, and it taught me you know how to pay attention to the actions of someone rather than the verbal that I would get out of that. The other, now getting back to this is the consistency. Like I said earlier, top fighters are not only able to beat people just because they're throwing their A and B selection shots. They are consistent in everything, in energy manipulation, um, in understanding cause and effect, and understanding how to catalog. There are a lot of the top end fighters sometimes have just the innate ability to intellectualize what they're doing. They may not know they're doing it, but they just have the ability to understand it without breaking it down. There are several high-end fighters that probably couldn't even teach you a rap shot. They go, "How did you kill that guy?" And they go, "Well, I just killed him." And you go, "Well, what did you do to kill him? Did you faint or did you do that?" He goes, I don't know. I have no clue. I just go out there and kill people. And I never wanted to be that type of person. So I, with intelligence and understanding, try to break down exactly what people did so that when I taught them, I wasn't teaching them something that I wasn't doing. I was teaching them something that I was doing. And I constantly stop in the middle of my classes and go, I just showed you guys that. Is that what I do? And everybody goes, oh, yeah, or maybe no. More times I get, yeah, that's exactly what you do. And I said, okay, I just want to make sure I wasn't teaching you something that was hypocritical. And it was actually something that I did or do. Um, and and I tell people a lot of times that, hey, you may not be able to copy this because I'm 6'4" and weigh 325, 330 pounds. I'm able to cheat, so this may not be something that you can do, but I just want to show it to you just in case you're able to practice it on the pell or something like that. So basically, just to reiterate what we have covered, I wanted to say commitment, knowledge and understanding, ambition, patience, and consistency are the 5 things I think you need to work on to improve your SCA fighting. And, of course, a lot of other things that other people are teaching and showing as well. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
No, that was great. I really liked how you went into the more of the mental aspect, like you said you were going to. It's the
Yeah.
one thing we haven't heard a lot, and it's good, especially when you were talking about patience. That's the one that stuck out to me the most, is because I fight very similarly to that style, and it's something that I get a lot of conflicting opinions on, being sitting there taking a step back and letting that person throw a couple shots so you kind of learn where their patterns are and where they're going to be throwing. Excuse me. And then when you actually start to open up, you interrupt their tempo and a lot of times win the fight. However, it is pretty, you have to be very confident in your ability to be defensive because
Oh, most
yeah.
definitely. My worst fear is that I'm in my defensive game and somebody comes out and one shots me.
Yeah,
What?
exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
'Cause trust me, when I first started off, I would get one shot at a lot. But
Hmm.
sooner or later, I learned how to start defending against that. But, I really am not comfortable until someone has thrown at least 2 or 3 shots at me before I will try to even think about thinking offensive. For
Wow.
some reason, I like the thing that maybe I think what it comes from is back in the day, there used to be these fighters that we called gunslingers,
Hmm.
and they would just stand and defend and then just come out of nowhere and just kill you. And I used to think that that was amazing.
Yeah,
And so maybe I'm trying to emulate some of their patterns or no, but I do think that with a good defensive uh, um perspective on this fighting, that anybody from defense can find somebody that makes a mistake. Even myself,
absolutely.
even Duke Uther, some, there's going to be something that they make a mistake in, and you
Mhm.
really can't kill anybody if you're not alive.
Right, right,
So, yeah.
right. Love it, love it. And then the other thing that I really liked that you talked about was when you were talking about you just let Uther do his not his one move wonder, but his most favorite move on you, and you knew it was coming. Um, Kind of like interrupting. So he was talking about him and his household wrote this How to Fight book, and one of the first things is you don't stop fighting. Like once you go, you just keep going. And I feel like when you fight somebody like that, if you are the one to initiate that, it's going to throw them off like that fraction of a second, like you were talking about. So he's not hitting at super speed, he's hitting at super-ish speed. So it's
Yeah.
just a fraction of a second slower. And so it's something that you can take advantage of. I never really thought of something like that prior to hearing that from you. So thank you for that. That was two of the main things that resonated with me. So
Is there any questions you want to ask?
yes, yep, that's where
Okay.
we were getting ready to go. So
Okay.
I've been challenged to ask this question by Sir Helga. She wants me to ask all the people that we interview, out of these five things: commitment, knowledge and understanding, ambition, patience, and consistency, what was the easiest one for you to learn, and which one was the hardest one for you to learn?
Um, Actually, I would say uh, two things were the ones that motivated me and helped me with my most success in the SCA.
Hmm.
One would be commitment, i.e., doing my Pell work, writing in my journal, and keeping track of plays. Because once again, I told you I came from football, so I'm used to game tape and
Yep.
learning what we had to do from that. So I needed to create some type of game tape, even though we weren't able to film. But and my ambition.
Okay.
So those two things were the things that motivated me the most
Hmm.
because, um, and I guess my narcissism. Uh, uh, because when I first got in the SCA, I said, "Well, what do you have to do to be, known in the SCA?" And someone says, "Oh, kick ass." And I went, "Oh, that's all you got to do." And so,
Game
uh,
on.
yeah, I that was what motivated me to do Pell work and motivated me to write in my journal. And and my narcissism is I don't care who you were. I would walk up and ask you some questions or how you throw that shot. Um, or things like that, because my second event in the whole SCA was Penzic, and
Hmm.
that's where I met Duke Balder.
Okay.
And I met him, and I'm going to go to Sean once again, because he said, "Hey, let me walk you around." And Brian Tarragon was on the throne at that time, and he goes, "Hey, would you like to fight this squire?" And it was no offense to me, but Brian Tarragon says, "Hey, I only have so much time. I only want to fight, some knights and whatever," because he was trying to improve in and of himself. He wasn't
Hmm.
accepting his success just for what it was and just keep beating the same drum. He was trying to learn as well. And Baldar said to him, well, you have to warm up. And he goes, yeah, well, I made the most horrible mistake as I laid some stick on Brian Tarragon. And the look he gave me and the shoulder shrug he did, and then he beat me like a redheaded stepchild. I mean, just beat the living crap out of me. But my claim to fame is that I could run backwards faster than most people could run forward. And so I ran backward and happened to put a wrap on him like the second time we passed.
Hmm.
And he was not having it. And he came out and literally beat me like 10 or 15 times in a row. Uh, and then when he got finished, the words he said is, "Oh, you're going to be pretty good." And I had to look at him and understand what he was saying. I was like, "Oh, I understand. Not I'm going to be good because you just kicked the crap out of me 15 times in a row, but that I was able to get stick on you after only fighting for 3 months." You know, granted that was only one. If you
Hmm.
call getting stick on out of 20 fights on somebody one time good. But that is what he said to me, and that is my um, that's what I took away from that Pinzik, and I smiled all the way home. It was like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
The thing that was the most difficult for me is I would once again say to um, patience. I hadn't learned how to wait for things to happen, wait for openings to that the person will give you because it's their natural flow. And the other thing was consistency. I hadn't uh, figured out what shots really had worked for me or what do work for me or how to be looking for a specific shot. So, my consistency was low. Not saying that I wouldn't lay stick on someone, but out of 10 fights, I would only lay stick on someone like 3 times. And so that's bad consistency. And so what I learned from going back over my journal and distilling all of this down to a specific style of fighting was that my consistency immediately shot up. Um, when I could stand in front of Duke so-and-so and get 60%, and I wasn't even a squire yet, I was unbelt. Um, that reputation, uh, I remember Sir Halidar saying to me, the difficulty in fighting you is we never know what you're going to do. And I never want to throw the same shot over and over. Say, for instance, I'm going to use Duke Sean. Say, for instance, I'm fighting him and I kill him one way.
Hmm.
I don't want to keep just pounding that same shot in because Duke Sean's going to figure that out and know, oh, I just got to block that and then I can just
Yep.
beat the crap out of him. And so what I learned is if I kill you a specific way, I will not try to attempt that until I have killed you 3 other different ways.
Hmm.
So that's what kept me rotating and trying to always get different clubs in my bag. So that's it.
Got it. Got it. No, that's perfect. So, and then the other question that I usually ask is, you've been fighting for a really long time, for 34 to 36 years, right?
Yes.
Um, how, and I mean, you've had your fair share of injuries, but as new and upcoming fighters are coming to the game, how would you say, or what advice would you give them to increase their longevity in the game, to kind of prevent injuries and so on and so forth?
Um, oh, that's a good question. Um, my health issues had nothing to do with my fighting, so I've never had injuries due to fighting. So that um, is a very interesting question, because I know several people that have blown their knees out and stuff doing this. Um, I would say I think the reason why my longevity has lasted as far as SCA fighting and not natural health issues that you
Hmm.
can't prevent uh, is pell work. I
Okay.
think that my consistent working on the pell and trying to understand what muscle groups are moving, whatever, and if I feel any tension, try to relieve that tension in the
Okay.
process of throwing the shots.
Yeah. Okay.
So I would think pell work has been probably the thing that has made me have some fighting longevity.
Okay, I could understand that, because I like I was saying before we started the meeting, I just barely started doing a lot of pell work last year, and I also noticed like a little slight ting in my shoulder, and
Yeah,
then as I started progressing more and more through the pell work and watching Duke Sean's videos, he just posted a whole bunch on YouTube on how
yeah,
proper
yeah.
mechanics.
I just watched those. Yeah,
Yeah,
of
and
course.
so and talking with him beforehand, I've noticed that if with the proper mechanics, my shoulder no longer hurts. So,
Yeah,
um, and that was through pell work and being like, "Ow, that did not feel good. That one felt perfect. Okay,
yeah.
do the one that feels better." So,
And no matter how long we fight, because I mean, I know Duke Sean just put those out, but I sit here and watched all of those, and I had and went back to school, i.e., emptying my cup and learning as if I were a brand new fighter, just to make sure that I was doing it correctly.
absolutely.
So,
Great advice. Okay, so that's the questions I have. There are a few people in the Zoom meeting, and we did end up getting Facebook Live. I don't know if you noticed that or not, but we
yeah, I
did end
did.
up going. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to jump on the camera and ask away, and then we will go to the Facebook comments and if there's any questions there.
No questions?
Bueller, Bueller.
Bueller, Bueller.
Yeah.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it immensely. I need to scoot. Oh. What about your shoulder a few years back? Uh, my well, that's Gunther, who used to be my squire.
Hmm.
Um, my shoulder a few years back was um, happened because I was throwing shots too quickly, if that makes any sense whatsoever. Um, and I tweaked it just from throwing shots too quickly, which meant that I did not have the proper technique. I was trying to go for speed
Hmm.
instead of technique, and that is never a good thing to do. I am in the process right now of trying to quote unquote get myself motivated back into fighting, i.e., I'm only fighting with my offhand now, so
Okay.
that to see if that will get me motivated back into fighting. So we'll see how that works for me. But that was a good question, Gunther.
Okay.
It had nothing to do with um, it didn't end my career or injure me to where I couldn't throw blows. I just tweaked something and I could feel it for a couple of months. as I was throwing blows, but
Gotcha.
I soon realized it was due to faulty technique.
Hmm. Okay. All right. Vigorbrand has a question. Go ahead and open up, brother.
I actually got a couple of questions for you. One,
Okay.
I'm just one. I'm curious. You said you was out for like 4 years, and then you came back, and a lot of stuff had changed. I'm just curious what had changed. What were the big changes?
The big changes were uh, back in the 80s, it was regionalized. Since we didn't have social media, you could technically see, you could just watch somebody fight and go, oh, they're from the East. Oh, they're from the Mid Realm. Oh, they're from Trimaris. And when I came back, YouTube had picked up. So a lot of people were watching the YouTube tapes and adopting styles from different regions of the known world, and also maybe due to social media. I'm not sure. It depends on where you were, but I'm going to say A-frame or high guard and all of that wasn't as prevalent as it seems to be now. Um, i.e., you have so many people that have progressed and did well with A-frame and high guard that now people quote unquote use that as a legitimate style of fighting. And after watching someone be successful with it, you may watch a lot of their tape and then maybe start adapting into that. So that's what changed for me.
And the other thing I was going to ask you, you talk about doing a lot of pell work. So like right now I've been doing like 50 with my left hand, 50 with my right hand, right?
Yeah,
Primarily a right-handed fighter. Did
yeah.
you switch it up like that between your hands, and how much? Like 75, 25?
Well, that's funny that you would say that. I would try to throw 1,000 blows a day. So I would throw 500 with my right arm and 500 with my left arm. So
Wow.
I've always tried to switch that up because the reason why I wanted to get my offhand more active is because if I get armed, I don't want my fighting to fall down percentage wise. I still wanted to stay high in that 60 or 70% rather than, oh, you armed him and now he's fighting left-handed and I basically have a 35 to 25% chance of being successful uh, uh, at as that. So I would always practice on hand, off hand equally to make sure that I
Okay.
understood it. But in doing that Pell work when I was younger, I did not break it down to be able to be as effective left-handed. And since
Mhm.
I've come back and started fighting left-handed, I realized what I needed to do, and this may be a little bit too much for some people, but I deflated a tennis ball and started throwing it against the wall and tried to understand the muscles that I needed to not throw like a girl left-handed. And in that process, it allowed my left-handed fighting to get stronger because
Wow.
I started figuring out what muscle groups I needed to get in the process of that.
Wow.
So,
I
yeah.
was actually watching a rap video by David Garcia. He's part of Duke Sven from Anstiora. He's part of his lineage, and he was telling us how to throw a rap shot. And the way that his house teaches it is you throw a rap almost like a baseball, and it's just the
Oh,
same mechanics as throwing a baseball downwards. And so that's cool that you just pretty much confirmed everything that he's saying too, is by learning to throw a tennis ball, it's the same
yeah.
mechanics in a way. So I'm using the same
Well,
muscles.
that you mentioned Duke Sven, even though this game had been going quite a while, he came with a style of two-stick
Yep.
fighting that has really changed the way this game
Right.
works. And a
Right.
lot of people are starting to adopt that style because
Mhm.
it is effective.
It
you
is
know,
effective. Yeah, for sure.
I sit here and wonder, I was like, man, I would love to meet that guy. Not saying I don't want to meet him now, but I would love to have met him in my 25s or 30s just to see how I would be able to accept that style of two-stick fighting versus
Absolutely.
being a 54-year-old man and
Hey,
having some
don't cut yourself so short. You got this. He's actually on the show Thursday night. He'll be on the show
Oh,
this
okay.
week, so you should tune in then.
All
Okay,
right.
we got some more questions from Facebook land.
All right.
Lucas asks, "What is your favorite kind of tournament and why?"
My favorite kind of tournament is Bastard Sword or Great Sword tournament.
Okay.
That seems to, since I did not fight with a shield until after I'd been fighting for about well, maybe two and a
Mhm.
half, 3 years. That seems to be my weapon of choice. So I really like Bastard Sword or Great Sword. That,
Perfect.
yeah.
Okay. The next question from Facebook land is from Michael. He says, "Not sure which kingdom it is, but I think there's a kingdom where people have been knighted for war fighting. What do you
Oh,
feel about that?"
I am for that because not every leader is about themselves. They're about the whole unit, and coming from a war fighting kingdom such as Palantir, I am greatly for that. Um, because was a gentleman in Palantir who created the Palantir shield wall,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and one-on-one, he had already, uh, due to his age, he had already reached his peak and fallen a little bit below that. So his individual fighting was not good, but as a war leader, there was not one Duke that would not do what he said immediately. And that
Okay.
shows the capacity to being a great leader. And
Mm-hmm.
if you can get people, uh, us narcissistic Dukes, to do something without questioning it, then that shows you have great leadership capability.
I love it. Love it. Especially I come from a mostly melee fighting household, so
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Will Fulton asks, "If you could do things different, what would that be?"
If I could do things different, when I say this, I hope I'm not offending people. I probably would not have won crown after being in for 16 months, because that was like Wizard of Oz. I got to see the wizard behind the curtain too soon.
Okay.
And so then it took me 10 more years to get to the level of wanting to fight for a crown again. Um, that that and well, basically that. I know that sounds weird, but I advanced too quickly, so to speak.
Okay.
So
Gotcha. Kind of goes back to what you were referring to, like how people are like, "I want to become a Duke, like right now," but
yeah.
you didn't have a chance to enjoy the process of earning. Well, you earned it obviously, but you didn't have the prolonged process of learning, the ins and out of the game.
Well, after winning the first time, I obviously, some people say I did a great job as king, but I purposefully did not fight in crown again because I wanted to learn more about the SCA, more
Yeah.
about fighting, and I just needed to step away from that. Even though I've been in the SCA for 34, 36 years, I've only fought in 4 crowns ever.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Got it. Okay. So we're gonna let Kensei Lash come on video. He's been patiently waiting for me to allow him to come on video. So feel free to come on, brother.
Hey, brother, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
It's been I missed you at Great Western War. I was trying to catch up to you, but
Yeah,
you probably don't recognize me in out of armor. I'm that.
I do. I recognize you.
Okay, usually you just have to tell him the crazy red samurai, and he's like, "Oh, I know who that is." So I have a question about you. It's kind of funny. You jumped right in talking about great swording being your favorite, or bastard sword tourneys being your favorite. Um, Now, when you, because I know you glaive too, and you're
Yeah,
getting
I do.
and I actually your class that you did on YouTube, the two-part class that you did on YouTube, that's my go-to for most of the guys who want to learn glaive from me.
Oh,
That you
okay.
got to watch that first, and because it's a fantastic video. I just wanted to tell you that. I never got to tell it to you before. It was a fantastic video. What I was wondering is that is your uh, is your great sword or your bastard sword or your glazing style, does that change what you just said is your top five? Does that change in your fighting style versus sword and board?
It does actually because um, with sword and board, you have one attack instrument and one defense instrument, and you can be a little bit more lazy, so to speak, accepting shots and doing that. But as a glaive, bastard sword, or great sword fighter, you have to be um, more on point. Because you never know what shot's gonna come in and kill you, but you have to be more active. So you have to be active in your defense and also process your offense into the same shot. Because I never want to leave myself in a defensive position that I can't immediately throw an offensive shot from that. So
Okay.
that means that I have to sit on the pell and practice defense to offense, offense to defense. I always have to be active on that so that I'm never left hanging. And the problem with a lot of great sword and a pole arm and bastard sword fighters is they never it's kind of like being in Vegas. You have to you you're not going to gamble on a low winning game. You're going to gamble on a high percentage winning game. And what they forget a lot of times is they will try to take someone's leg. And I was like, dude, once your glaive is down there around their hips, there's no way you're going to protect a wrap shot or a head shot. And why would you leave yourself open like that? Why would you take a chance on that low percentage shot versus the higher percentage shots by keeping it, around the body or around the head?
Mm-hmm.
Because that will give you a better chance of winning versus, okay, what do you get when you take a leg shot? Okay, now I back up, let them get down to their knees, and then I come back in, or I stay out at the full 6 range and poke, poke, poke. But I, as a bastard sword fighter, would always make sure that my opponent could hit me. Even if I took their leg, I would step in before we fought and go, can you reach me? And they'd go, yeah, I can reach you. And I'd fight from there, because the more I'm able to use my defense and not just stand out at 6 feet and poke somebody. Any second grader can stand out and poke somebody and get the kill. I would always want to put myself in the dangerous position because I was always wanting to be prepared.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much, brother. I really appreciate it, and then hopefully I'll catch up to you later.
Yeah, please do.
Lash and I are actually in the same household as mercenaries, just so you know. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So, all right. So we got 2 more questions from Facebook land, and then we're gonna call it a day. So, let me see if I can find them. So, top 3 recommended videos. If we have to narrow it down, let's say improving great weapon style, and we're going to throw his second question in there, and any tips for improving melee training through video.
Ooh. Hmm. Melee training through video. Hmm. Melee training through video, I don't want to offend people, but I haven't really seen a lot of good training melee video. I've seen good melee fighters that you should pay attention to. But man, I'm going to put it this way, and I don't want them to hear this and get a big head, but I would say the Orkneys from Kaid were good.
Just kidding, just kidding.
We're good at melee. I don't
Yes.
know if you could learn from them or not, because that's a good question. No one has ever did any instruction on being a good melee fighter.
Absolutely.
And the only thing I could say about if you want to be a good melee fighter is learn how to keep your head on the swivel and understand the flow and the feel of battle. Because there's a harmony in melee that you cannot even recreate anywhere. You can just feel what is going on in the battle and know where to go and know what to do. So that so far has been an instinctual part of SCA, and I don't know if it's a part that you can actually train someone.
So this actually brings up a good theory that I've had a few discussions on, and they could probably go off on clear on a whole other video between us, but I want to get your take on, do you think that in terms of melee fighting and tournament fighting, do you think tournament fighters make good melee fighters, and then on the flip side, do you think melee fighters make good tournament fighters?
Well, I am not going to be popular when I say this. I think good melee fighters make better tournament fighters than tournament fighters make melee fighters, because in tournament, you practice on singling out your opponent and only paying attention to the one person in front of you. And I have seen a lot of great fighters that don't do well in tournament because they don't have the ability to keep in mind 2 or 3 things on the battle and the flow of the battle. I don't know what to actually call it, but it's like music. I'm a musician as well. Yeah, tempo. You got to understand more on the melee field than just being able to single out your one opponent and kill them.
I could see that.
It's not about killing that one person. It's about being more effective in more than one area of the melee.
Absolutely. Like in a melee, you can't just focus on the guy in front of you. You have to focus on the guy 5 guys away from you as well. So,
there's the things that I hate is if I get killed from 5 guys down, then I didn't do my job as a melee guy, because I should always know that death is what I call death. I could be fighting in a melee, and if Duke Uther walked up 3 feet down, I immediately know where death is.
And I'm going to avoid it.
Yeah, death is 3 people down right there. And if another Duke like Duke Sean walked up on that side, death is right here. So you'll have to keep a clear watch on death. And what happens in melee is people get gigged from the side and they go, oh, I didn't even see that. Well, dude, what were you looking at? You know, if you weren't looking at death, then I don't know what you were doing. You think he's just going to suck He
Mhm.
kills 90 people with a wave of his stick. You know, you got to know what's down there.
Yeah. Okay, so the last question we have for the evening is from Isfail File. They ask, do you have any required reading or video movies for your students?
Uh, I used to, but the problem was that my students would never do the process. But
Mhm.
I like the Book of Five Rings, Musashi, that gives you a clear understanding of what you need to do to be a good fighter. It's just not going to come to you by osmosis. And if you're not willing to do the work, then you are not wanting to be the best fighter that you can be. Not the best fighter in the SCA, the best fighter that you can be. But you have to be willing to put in the work
Mhm.
to do it. Um, there are some people like you know, when it's Duke Ivan, uh, couldn't, I didn't think he was a good teacher,
Mhm.
but that dude could kill people like nobody's business. And you know, I never could figure that out. I was like,
Yeah.
how can you be killing people but not know what you're doing?
Right.
There's just some people that have an innate um, affinity for killing people, and then there's some people that have an innate affinity to teaching. And the person that taught me in the SCA was not the best fighter, but he could see everything coming down the pike,
Yeah.
which was good for me,
Okay.
that he could figure things out. And if I was struggling with something to do, he could go, well, just do this and this and this and this. He couldn't do half of it, but he could coach very well. And coming from football, I breaking things down and having to understand the flow on the football field is, I
Mhm.
think, what helped me in melee fighting in SCA.
I could see that.
I could better understand the flow and how things were going. And even if you were trying to trick me, I
Mhm.
could see the openings and stuff in the melee field.
All right, perfect. Well, I think that's it for the questions. Do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to throw out there for anything?
The only thing that I would say is learn or practice or Google and understand visualization, because the more you can visualize on the Pell, then it becomes your friend, and you can learn a lot about SCA fighting by using just those two tools, visualization and repetition on the Pell. And I think that that would help you very much
Okay,
in SCA fighting.
perfect. I love it. Well, thank
Okay.
you for coming on the show tonight. I know I took a lot from it, and I'm sure everybody else is feeling the same way. I definitely loved the difference in, instead of constantly talking about like the techniques that you can use and things you should be working on, you went into the mental aspect, like I said earlier. But
Yeah.
that aside, I really am honored and humbled that you were willing to come on here, and truly appreciate you taking the time to reach out to all of us and help us all become better fighters in the SCA and develop the SCA in this time of need. So
Exactly.
um,
Well, you know, like I said, I love talking. So, what Duke have you met that doesn't like talking?
I think that's a prerequisite to becoming a Duke. You don't. It's not just winning crown. You have to learn to talk a lot.
Exactly. And hope that what you're saying makes sense, because
Hopefully.
sometimes the rambling goes on. But I do hope that this avenue or area of SCA talk is helpful to people, because it's not, I don't think it's like a lot of the others. I think it's more dealing with your ability to understand and to use in your mind. And if you don't start fighting using your mind, then you're never really going to progress.
Right.
So
Right.
uh,
I appreciate
that's
that.
all. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in, and thanks again, Your Grace Tomuki, and we'll be in touch. All right.
All right. Thank you guys very
Yep.
much.
Have a good night, everyone.
All right. Good night.